I have about as much superannuation as a 60-year-old, despite being a 37-year-old woman.
I've seen investing in property via an SMSF go wrong more times than I've seen it go right.
This gentleman's talking about when you're investing in using your SMSF or you're investing in general, it all comes down to...
In this country, given the resources we have, Australians should not be paying, all of us.
Your SMSF has to meet residency requirements to maintain its tax concessions. There are 3 of them.
When you have a self-managed super fund, you must have assets here in Australia and you must be here. The central control of your SMSF must be here in Australia. Welcome to SMSF Insider, where we help busy professionals to gain financial independence using an SMSF. Hi, I'm Troy, founder of Blue Chip SMSF Services. And over the last 20 years, I've helped thousands of Aussies manage the complexities of self-managed super funds. And in this podcast, I'll answer your questions, break down the myths, so you can take charge of your financial freedom. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Troy, founder of Blue Chip SMSF Services. Today, I'm going to be looking at some Instagram posts and some social media posts and making some commentary around them.
In this country, given the resources we have, Australians should not be paying, all of us, more than 25% tax, income tax we're talking about. Given all the other taxes you hit us with, we should not be paying more than 25%. In fact, we should be paying 20% income tax.
Got to agree with Mark here. We definitely do pay a lot of tax here in Australia. Everybody knows it. But certainly one of the only tax havens we have left is, in fact, superannuation and self-managed super funds. So my advice is, well, it's not advice, but certainly commentary around this is, yes, we do get taxed more than most countries on the planet. And the only tax haven left is a super fund. So a self-managed super fund is essentially a super fund that you control yourself. So you make all the investment decisions on your behalf, and as opposed to somebody else making those decisions for you. With that obviously comes responsibility, and SMSFs aren't for everybody. So certainly seek advice before making any investment decisions. But if you are thinking about setting up an SMSF, please reach out. We'd love to help. Yeah, so when you're investing within super, the tax on superannuation is 15% is the maximum tax rate. If you're investing in your own personal name, it can be as much as 47%. So it's a huge difference there. It's 3 times as much tax. So investing through your SMSF or through your super fund is a very tax-friendly environment. Of course, there's rules and regulations around accessing those funds, which you need to be mindful of. But certainly, if you're a long-term investor, the tax rate through an SMSF is a third of what it could be in your own personal name. So thoughts are here, certainly the ATO has some guidelines around how much you should have when you're establishing a self-managed super fund, and that amount is $200,000. If you've got less than $200,000, then you just need to be mindful that the overall cost of running your SMSF could be potentially more than what would be if you're in your regular industry fund or retail fund.
I've seen investing in property via an SMSF go wrong more times than I've seen it go right. I made a comment to that effect on my Instagram stories earlier today, and there's been so many of you asking for me to elaborate, so here goes. When I say I've seen it go wrong, it's people that have bought crap properties, cheap properties. They get to this kind of impatient level is maybe the right way to describe it, this impatient level of super.
This gentleman's talking about when you're investing in using your SMSF or you're investing in general, it all comes down to what assets you're purchasing, whether it be inside of super or outside of super. If you're investing or you're buying shares or property, whatever it is, if that asset doesn't perform, then your super doesn't perform. So you need to be mindful about what assets you're actually purchasing. And if that's property, then ensure that maybe do your research and make sure you're purchasing in perhaps growth corridors, for example, or there's a demand or supply shortage in that area, and look at the fundamentals. So before making any investment decisions, it is important to get some advice. And whether that be investing inside or outside of super, or whether it be property or shares or whatever the asset class, it's important to do your research around whatever asset you are purchasing or whatever asset you're investing in. Just quickly, guys, if you're a busy professional, fed up with traditional super funds and overwhelmed by the setup of your SMSF, we can help. Book in a call with my team using the link in the show notes, and let's build your future on your terms. Now, back to the episode.
Your SMSF has to meet residency requirements to maintain its tax concessions. There are three of them. The first one is that the SMSF needs to be established in Australia and have assets in Australia. That's a pretty simple one to satisfy. The second test is that the central management and control, so the decisions around making the investments, managing the compliance, all of the operations of the self-managed superannuation fund have to ordinarily reside in Australia. That's not to say you can't go overseas on a holiday, but you can't go and live overseas.
So what this gentleman's talking about is central control and management of your self-managed super fund. When you have a self-managed super fund, the assets you must have assets here in Australia, and you must be here. The central control of your SMSF must be here in Australia. So you can't go and live overseas for 5 years, for example, or over a 2-year period out. That would be deemed that the central control of your SMSF is no longer here in Australia. So what some people may do is consider perhaps setting up a retail fund or a different fund, an industry fund, and making contributions to those funds while they're overseas. If they are continuing to make contributions, they want to make contributions to a super fund while they're abroad. Alternatively, you could speak to your lawyer or advisor around having a power of attorney, someone who can make those decisions on your behalf while you are abroad. But it is important to get some advice if you are heading away for an extended period of time if you do have an SMSF.
I have about as much superannuation as a 60-year-old, despite being a 37-year-old woman. I bought my first property at 21 right after finishing university, and I've since gone on to own several other properties since then too. I have travelled overseas to Europe perhaps over 20 times privately. I have a caravan, I have several boats, and I have a large yacht now that I bought recently, and I've named it Baby.
Do you spend time with other people your age?
Unfortunately, not so much.
I'm not sure who this girl is, but she's done extremely well for a 37-year-old. She's made some smart investment decisions early on, and I guess that all comes down to time in the market or investing as soon as you possibly can. She may have made some huge sacrifices to get where she is, but good on her. She's done extremely well by the look of it, and certainly she must have a story. I'd love to hear it, but good on her. This young lady has looks like she's invested at an early age. So she bought property through her super at a young age, by the sound of it, and it looks like over time, I'm not sure whether she's got gearing in there. I'd say potentially if it happened, if she started buying property at a young age, she would have needed gearing in there, and now she has just as much money as a 60-something-year-old. So I guess the moral of that story is, invest as soon as you possibly can. Start investing as sooner rather than later.
You can't nominate your sister as beneficiary of your superannuation fund. If you're over here living your life and your sister's over here living her life, the two of you are adults, completely independent, not dependent on each other, you cannot nominate each other as superannuation beneficiaries. Story time. We came across a client today where there were two sisters. This sister over here married another guy. This is a second marriage.
So when you are nominating your beneficiaries, it's important to understand that they need to be dependents in some way, shape or form, or interdependent. And if you've got a brother or a sister that's not interdependent or isn't dependent upon you in any way, shape or form, then unfortunately you can't leave your retirement savings to that sibling. So certainly reach out and get some advice around, if you are needing some advice around your nominating your beneficiaries, certainly reach out and get some advice around how you go about doing that. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of SMSF Insider. If you've got a question or there is a topic that you would like us to speak about, please feel free to drop some comments in the comments section or reach out on the socials. Thanks for tuning in and look forward to catching up on the next edition of SMSF Insider. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of SMSF Insider. If you got value from this, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the strategies we share to help you take control of your financial future. Find us on socials at Blue Chip SMSF or book a call with our team to see if we can help you.